The legend, the Sha'agas Aryeh, when he first met the Vilna Gaon, he peppered him with a big kasha that he had. And the Vilna Gaon thought, didn't respond. The Sha'agas Aryeh, in the meantime, got ready to leave town. As he was ready in the carriage out of town, out of Vilna, the Vilna Gaon came running after him. And he told him the answer. The Sha'agas Aryeh said, Yotaka, a Gaon minus a mile. A Gaon minus a mile. Because I was already a mile out of the city when...
But he's known for being complex.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. On the other hand, he's also very clear. His arguments are very clear, very borer. But he'll prove. It's incredible how he brings his proofs. He'll quote a complicated Gemara, and then from the midst of the Gemara, the fact that the Gemara asks a certain question this way and not a different way means a certain halacha can be created from that, which will knock off Taisus and Rosh and Rambams, but he doesn't care. He'll... Anyhow, so... One? I don't know, I wasn't there. I saw 600, maybe 1,000.
Not far.
Anyhow, but we begin with number one as a Rambam. So how does it relate? We're in the 3 weeks. And the Rebbe wanted us to learn during the 3 weeks halachas about building the Beis Hamikdosh. So here's an interesting piece. It's really not really Negeya this week's parsha Matas Maseh, but it is Negeya building the Beis Hamikdosh. It's a very important halach of the Rambam in Hilchas Beis HaBechira. The Rambam in Sefer Avodah, which is all about the laws of the Beis Hamikdosh. In the first set of halachas, Hilchas Beis HaBechira, in the first parak, the Rambam says the following: Ein boinin es hamikdash balayla. We don't build the Beis Hamikdosh at night, because it says uvayoyim hakim es hamishkan. It says, the pasuk says that by day the mishkan should be erected. Beyoyim makim, when you set it up by day, loy balayla, not at night. So you can't build it at night. The Oiskin Bebinyan were involved in the building from Alois Shacha, from dawn till Tzeitzek Achom, until the stars come out. V'hakol chayovin livnoi sulasayid. Everybody's chayav to build and to help. Ba'atzman, with themselves, b'moinam, and financially. Anoshim v'noshim, men and women. K'mikdash hamidbar, like the mikdash, the mishkan that was built in the desert. The aim of Vatan Tanoikish shall be Sabbath opinion, but the kids that are learning in Cheder, learning Torah, you don't stop them. The kids that are learning Chumash and Mishnah, you let them learn. The aim binyan a mikdash doicha Yom Tov, but you don't do it Yom Tov either. Obviously not Shabbos, even Yom Tov. So the Rambam says you only do it by day, not at night. And then he says everyone's chayiv, men and women. And the obvious question is, if you can only do it by day, then it's a Minchas essay which is bound by time. So how can you say in the next line that women have to do it? Don't we know the rule that a Minchas essay bound by time, women are potter? We actually learn from Tefillin. The Gemara in Kedushin says Tefillin is written next to Talmud Torah, both in the parsha of Shema. We say V'shinantam and then Ukshartam. So too in V'hoyim Shemaya we have Tefillin and then we have Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah, we know women are potter. V'limadatam moisim es b'neichem, your sons, not your daughters. It's only the men. V'shinantam levanecha, your sons. So too, since Tefillin both times is written next to Talmud Torah, women are potter from Tefillin as well. Now the whole Torah is compared to Tefillin. As it says in the end of Parshas Boy, you should put on Tefillin l'man tiyeh teres Hashem b'ficha, the Torah should be in your mouth. And we learn from there, Huksha kol ha-Torah kula, so the whole Torah is compared to Tefillin. So if Tefillin, women are potter, then so too the whole Torah. Now that what they're potter from the whole Torah? Not exactly. Anything similar to Tefillin. Just like Tefillin is a mitzvah essay bound by time, whether it's because we don't wear it at night, like Reb Yosef Engel, like the Rambam, or whether Minat Torah you just don't wear it Shabbos and Yom Tov, like Rabbi Akiva, the fact is it's bound by time. So we say, we know Tefillin women don't have to wear because it's written next to Talmud Torah. Tefillin is an example of a mitzvah, a positive command bound by time. Since the whole Torah is compared to Tefillin, L'man tiyeh Torah Hashem b'ficha, When you wear tefillin, you have the whole Torah in your mouth. So we say so to any mitzvah which is similar, women are potter. Tzitzis, Kriya Shema. So the same thing should apply over here to building the Beis Hamikdosh. And it's funny how in the very same halacha the Rambam says, you don't do it at night, only by day, and women are chayiv. You would think such a contradiction, at least you should put it in two different places. Not in the very same halacha. So Reb Yosef Kara, in his commentary, the Kesef Mishnah on the side, says, where does the Rambam get it from? Well, the first halacha that you only build it by day, that's a Gemara in Masechta Shavuos. It's a statement of Abaya. Abaya says this, Abaya brings the pasuk, B'yoyim hakim es hamishkan, by day, not by night. The second part that women have to build, the Rambam says something. The Rambam says, look at what happened in the desert. Look at what happened in the Mishkan in the desert. As it says in Parshas Vayakol, Vayavoyo ha'anoshim, the men came with the women. Some believe, right, the mirrors as well. The men came on top of the women. The men came alan on top of the women, which is learned by many to mean they came after. The women, in fact, donated first. There is a geschmack pshat.
Doesn't say they built over there. They were just bringing.
They were messiah. They helped.
Bring the stuff.
Okay, most men did the same thing. How many people built? Only those that had Chacham Lev. Only certain people, Bezalel and his crew, the craftsmen, Bezalel and Oliyav, a couple people. But everyone else was just Messiah. They did what they could. There's a geschmack of word that the men sinned by the golden calf. So when they brought the donations to the Mishkan, they were doing teshuvah, they were doing repentance. The women never sinned, so they were tzaddikim.
It was only the Arab route.
Nah, but all the men they should have been protested. The men were blamed for not protesting.
Okay.
Nah, what do you mean? Rashi says in Chumash, the reason we never came to Eretz Yisrael was a combination, the 40 years the Yidden died out was a combination of the Meraglim and the Egel. The Yidden were held responsible. So the women were tzaddikim, the men were Baalei Tshuva. Who's greater? Rabbi Yevoah says in Gemara that Baalei Tshuva are greater. That's why the pasuk says the men came on top of the women. The men were higher because the men at this point had done Tshuva. The women were just tzaddikim, so the men were actually higher. But the simple reading is that the women actually came first. So Reb Yosef Kaira says the Rambam is saying, you know why women are chayiv? Look what happened in the desert. Look what happened in the desert. So everybody asked the question, why taka women chayiv l'chayr, it's bound by time. And I saw in a number of places they quote the kasha from the Sha'agas Aryeh. They say Sha'agas Aryeh asked the kasha. I haven't found it in any of the Sha'agas Aryeh's works, so I don't know where he asked the kasha. Apparently there's a museum in New York where they have manuscripts from the Sha'agas Aryeh still unprinted. I don't know where the Sha'agas Aryeh asked the question, but apparently he asked the kasha on the Rambam. But besides for him, many, many other people asked the kasha as well. Everybody deals with it. What is going on in the Rambam? Why taka would women have to build? What's the explanation? So maybe you'll say that's why the Rambam says, I'm not making this up. Look what happened in the desert. That's why the Rambam adds the words, Hamikdosh Midbar. In other words, maybe the Rambam believes this mitzvah is an exception. Taka, the general rules would dictate women should be potter. It happens to be here they're chayiv because that's what happened in antiquity. So apparently the Sha'agas Aryeh, wherever it's written, again I couldn't find it anywhere, asks that, wait a second. If you look in the Gemara in Kiddushin, where it discusses this idea that a mitzvah's essay bound by time, women are potter, the Gemara goes through 4 lists. It goes through one list of mitzvah's essay bound by time that they're potter, like Kriya Shema and tzitzis and tefillin, etc. Then there's a list of mitzvah's essay bound by time that they're chayiv nonetheless, like eating matzah, making kiddush on Shabbos. Why? And in that list, the Gemara gives a list of a couple mitzvahs, hakel, there's a couple mitzvahs, simchas yom tov, a couple mitzvahs which are bound by time, but nonetheless women are chayiv. And each one for a source. Why do women have to make kiddush Friday night? Because Hashem said, remember Shabbos, and keep Shabbos in the same breath. Keep Shabbos means not to do the malachas. Any loy sase, even if it's bound by time, women are chayiv. the mitzvah of Kiddush comes from Zocher. Since Hashem said them together, so we compare the two. Whoever's chayiv in the shomer, including women, is chayiv in the Zocher. And so to all of those examples on that list, each one has a source of, even though it's bound by time, women are chayiv. According to the Rambam, this should be on the list. The mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdosh, even though it's bound by time, but we learn out from what happened in the Midbar that women are chayiv. The Gemara doesn't mention it in the list.
By the way, how do we know the Zman Grama? From where do we learn it?
From Tefillin. So I mentioned before, it came from Tefillin. So this is the kasha. So where does the Rambam, how does it make sense that they're chayiv? And to say the Rambam said, I don't know, but that's how it was in the desert. First of all, even that's a shaila. Why taka? But why taka were they chayiv? But more than that, the Gemara in Kedushin, in the list of Minchas Chinuch Gramas, that women are nonetheless chayiv, it doesn't mention this.
Every other mitzvah is mentioned there.
Pretty much. So what's going on?
Ton of this year.
What?
Ton of this year.
Yeah, okay, maybe. The funny thing is, even the Rambam's raya from the desert is not an ironclad raya, because there's an important statement from the Ramban and the Ritva in Masechta Kiddushin, Taf Lamed Vav. The Gemara says there an idea that it could be when the Torah says a mitzvah pertains to Bnei Yisrael, it could exclude Bnei Yisrael. The Gemara floats such an idea, and we do apply it at certain times. Like Bnei Aaron, not the daughters of Aaron. Bnei Aaron can't become tummy to a corpse, the daughters of Aaron can. So to Bnei Yisrael may sometimes exclude Bnei Yisrael. And the Ramban and the Ritva both asked, but look what happened in the desert. Hashem said in Parshas Truma, he told them, Dar Beryl Bnei Yisrael, speak to the men, v'yikchuli Truma, and they'll donate. And then it says the men and the women donate. And the Ramban and the Ritva both say, now the Ritva is a student of the Ramban students. The Ramban was a Rebbe of the Rashba and the Ra'or of Aaron Halevi. Both of them are Rebbes of the Ritva. So the Ritva and his teacher, the Ramban, they both say the same thing. The women donated. It was discretional. They chose to. There was no mitzvah. So B'chal, the whole raya of the Rambam, the Torah never says the women had to donate. The fact that they did doesn't mean they had to. So if the Rambam's building his whole thing from a precedent, the whole precedent's not even clear. So this whole Rambam is difficult. Okay. There are some that want to taina the Divrei Malkiel Tzvi Tenenbaum is featured here in the past. About 200 years ago, one of the big Gaonim, literature Gaonim, he says, the Rambam says there's a chiv to build and to help. The building, l'chayr, is ba'atzmon, yourself, and you help financially. There's two parts to the mitzvah. There's the building, and then there's the helping. Listed is to help. Well, it could be live nice or l'sayed. Depends. Where do you put there could be, there's a chiv live nice or l'sayed. Ba'atzmon is going on the binyan, b'mamayim going on the l'sayed. You support financially, but you do it yourself. Either way, the Rambam in the beginning of the halacha says what's bound by time. The binyan is bound by time, the building, not the helping. The actual building is bound by time, but all the helping that you can do is not bound by time. So he wants to say, now what does that mean? We'll have to see. But he says, when the Rambam says, Hakol chayov and livnoi sulasayid, men and women, he says women are only chayiv to help. The binyan aspect is taka bound by time. The helping is not bound by time.
Where you see that he said between men and women?
In the fifth line, in number 1, the fifth line, anoshim v'noshim, men and women. So he tainas, the Rambam holds women are chayiv in the sa'ad, in the siyu, in the helping, not in the binyan. The binyan's bound by time, not the helping. So that's a very strange thing, since when do we have a mitzvah? There are often mitzvahs that have different parts. But when do we say that within one mitzvah saseh, you split between the parts and say the parts that are bound by time, they're potter, and the other parts, they're chayiv? Very strange to say such a thing. In addition, the Rambam says everyone's chayiv to build and to help, and he says men and women. It's very hard to read that everyone's chayiv to build and to help, And when he says men and women, the women is only pertaining to the helping, not the building.
Why can't you say it the other way? That because the fundraising that goes on at night is not bound by time, the whole thing is considered not bound by time mitzvah. Because you're just as, you're Makayim,
Apply that to the
the
whole
building itself, don't split it in two. You're Makayim the
So
building
if you-
itself by appointing
Okay,
somebody else, by
so-
donating to it. Since you can donate at night, it's not Zman.
There's a well-known Ramban in Masechta Kiddushin, Daf Lamed Dalet, who says, if you ever have a mitzvah which has a mitzvah aseh and a lois aseh, if the mitzvah aseh is bound by time,
For example,
shiluach haken. There's a mitzvah aseh shalach to shalach aseh. There's a mitzvah lois aseh loisika chaim alabonim. Don't take the mother or the kids from each other, and then there's mitzvah aseh to send away the mother bird. So any mitzvah which has a lois aseh and an aseh, it's bound by both. But let's say the aseh is bound by time. Do I say, but since they're chayiv in the negative element, because they're chayiv in all negative elements, they're automatically chayiv in the aseh, or do I say fakert, since they're potter from the aseh element, they're potter from the lav element? This is an issue that Tosfos and the Ramban deal with in Kiddushin Daf Lamed Dalet. Again, any mitzvah which has, it's almost like Shabbos, where Hashem said Shomer v'Zocher in the same breath. Do I say, since women are chayiv in Shomer, they're also chayiv in Zocher? Or say fakert, since they're potter from the Zocher, because it's Kiddush, it's bound by time, maybe they're potter from the Shomer. Which way do I spin it? And that's by two mitzvahs. Hashem said it's right. Yeah, correct. So by one mitzvah, the Ramban says like this. Ramban says, by shiluach haken, the main part of the mitzvah is the positive command. The Eibusha threw in a loisasa just to verstark and just to strengthen. Says the Ramban, if the main thing is the aseh and the loisasa is only to strengthen, then I'm going to spin it and say if they're potter from the aseh, they're potter from the loisasa.
Because the lot aseh is not
You always
the main
follow
thing.
the main part of the mitzvah. So therefore, I'll tell you over here. By building the Beis Hamikdosh, the building is the main thing. The helping is only a preparation.
Helping you mean
And therefore, if I have to spin it, according to that same Ramban, I would extrapolate, apply the same logic here. I wouldn't say, since they're chayiv in the helping, they're chayiv in the building. I would spin it fakert. Since they're potter from the building, which is the main thing, that's the ultimate, they'll also be potter in the helping.
Helping you mean financially, siwa?
Yeah, that's what...
More people are involved in the helping than in the building here, and this is a unique situation.
Okay,
99% of the people
that's
are
all
not
preparation. The helping is the preparation.
Yeah.
It's all preparations. It's all a lead up. It's a lead up to the actual erection.
primary.
B'yoyim hakim es hamishkan.
building. No question.
In fact, Moshe Rabbeinu was upset that when it came to donating to the Mishkan, he donated nothing. Now, part of the reason is he didn't sin by the golden calf, and he was on top of the mountain. So he didn't need the atonement, the kapara. But he felt he had no involvement in the midst of building the Mishkan. Hashem said, fakert, you're going to erect it. That's, everyone else was just preparing.
What's the ikr?
Yeah.
That's the ikr. But
The
how do
ikr is
most people
b'yoyim hakim
accomplish
es
that ikr?
hamishkan, lifting up the Mishkan.
How do most people accomplish the ikr? Is by donating.
Okay, so the truth is, I'll tell you, the Reb Chaim Falaji and others learn, it's even more narrow. You narrow in even further. What you have to do by day is literally the erection of the walls, the actual hakama. Building the walls you can also do at night. You can do everything at night. It's just the b'yom hakim.
But that's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the hakim.
Okay, fine. But the vort is, they say, but you can do, as far as what does it mean to prepare versus to build, they say all building is also part of the, that's not bound by time. It's just literally Pasha, just lifting it up, the actual erection of the Mishkan, or the Beis HaMikdash. Which is hard, because the Rambam says, the Rambam's first words, Ein Boinin. He should have said Ein Mekimin. If the Rambam Taka meant that it was so narrow, he should have just said, you can't, you can't lift up the walls at night. It has to be done by day. He says, Ein Boinin. Anyhow, so I just wanted to point out that there are many Achronim who want to nitpick between the difference of livnois on the side, the building and the helping, and maybe women are chayiv in the helping, not the building. I'm just pointing out there are... No, Ein Mavatl... Lebinyan. You're right, he says Lebinyan.
Yom means Yom
What?
and Lila.
Sorry?
There's places in the Torah where Yom means both Yom and Lila.
Where?
Right in the beginning of Brachas, there in the last Mishnah in Perek Aleph. Yom refers to day and light. There's a machlekas over there. Not just because Yom says the bottom and the.
Whoa. Kol Yemei Chayecha. Who says Yemei means night? Ben Zayma says Kol Lahavi Halelis. Where does Yemei mean night? The Pashtus is Chachamim hold Yemei means only to remember by day. Ben Zayma uses Kol to add night. Where do you see Yemei means night? It happens to be the Abar Benel in his Haggadah on Pesach and the Shalah learn according to the Chachamim. Yemei Take means every day and every night. But that's not the simple reading. The Sha'agas Aryeh holds very clearly, and the Arizal himself.
We went last week. That was
Yeah.
last week's share. It was involved in last week's share about what the policy.
This was the Shabbos Haggadah Drasha a year and a couple months ago. We spoke about this. There are some who learn that when Chachamim say that Chachamim hold Yemei Chayecha includes every time period, every day and every night of your life. But that's not the simple reading of the Mishnah. The simple reading of the Mishnah is Chachamim hold you only do by day. They use Kol for Mashiach. Ben Zerma uses Kol for Laila. So according to the simple reading, there's no problem here. Yemei means day. According to Abar Benel and the Shalah, it's Takar Shaila, how Yemei to them means every time period. But you'd say, because it says Yemei, it doesn't say Yom, it says Yemei, the days of. Maybe the Yud at the end comes to teach you every time period. But either way.
Give another example of a splitting mitzvah. A split mitzvah.
There's a lot of tzitzis is split mitzvah between Tchelis and Lavan, the blue thread and the white thread. By tzitzis, we had a shir about this. In fact, if you go on the podcast, it's the first shir uploaded about 8 months ago that the Rambam says by tzitzis, the white strings, the blue strings are two different parts under the same mitzvah, but they're not ma'ak of each other. If you only have one, you could be yotze with that. The Baal HaMor disagrees. The Baal HaMor holds today tzitzis is all rabbinic. The Baal HaMor holds, Reb Zrachi HaLevi, the Baal HaMor holds that since the tchelis and the white strings are all part of one mitzvah, if you're missing part, you don't have the mitzvah. And there's no biblical of mitzvah of tzitzis these days, it's all rabbinic. That's his opinion. But the Rambam writes clearly in many places, and he says, the Rambam says, even though the white and the blue strings are one mitzvah, and you would expect that if you're missing part of it, you blew it. Like by tefillin, if you're missing one parsha, you lost it. Or even by tzitzis, if you're missing one corner, you lost it. Says the Rambam, between the blue and the white, they're they're not dependent on each other.
To the Mishkan, if you don't need any help, just so you're missing.
No, so the help over this is like you have to blow shofar. That means you have to go find the animal, cut off the shofar, prepare it. That's a preparation. It's a hechsher mitzvah. It's not.
So the woman on the chuv in the hechsher mitzvah.
Well, that's.
Is this what it is?
It's very strange if they're not. That's what I'm asking. If they're not chayiv in the ikr mitzvah, how could they be chayiv in the hechsher?
What's pretty than a woman does?
We're going to get to preview of in a moment, but I'm just saying. Hold on. I'm just saying that some of the big achronim, Reb Chaim Falaji, and I mentioned the Divrei Malkiel and others want to learn. They want to nitpick between the words livnos and lasayid and say certain, the actual erection or the building is bound by time, not the preparations. Women are chayiv in the preparations, not in the building. And it's just problematic for many reasons. If the ikr mitzvah is the building and they're potter from that, why would they be chayiv in the exterior parts of the mitzvah? It's very strange to say such a thing. Like I quoted from the Ramban in Kiddushin, that if you have one mitzvah which has an asay and a lav, if the asay is bound by time and that's the main part of the mitzvah, then we would say if you potter from that, then you potter from the lav as well. If you potter from the main part, you potter from the exterior. That's why it's a little bit problematic to go down that path. We go weiter. There's a big issue that Tosfos deals with in a couple places in Shas, and many Rishonim follow him as well. And in fact, join me first in number 3. It's a Tosfos in Kiddushin. The Mishnah there says that a woman is potter from giving bris milah to her son. Says the Gemara, why? Look at number 3. Oisoi v'lo yoisa. The pasuk says in Parshas Vayera that Avraham circumcised his son Yitzchak, kasher tziva oisai Elokim, like Hashem commanded him. Him and not her. The him means him and not Sarah. Sarah wasn't obligated. V'im taimar frek taisis, and all the Rishonim asked his kasha. Ask. Shoalim. You need a pasuk to tell me a mother doesn't have to circumcise the kid? Milah is a mitzvah saseh bound by time. V'im taimar lomalik, we're number 3. Who needs a pasuk? Teipukle, we should derive that mitzvah essay shas magrum, it's bound by time. Shenimo b'shmini l'leidosei. The first 7 days you can't do it. The noshim p'turis, women should be potter regardless. V'yashleim says Taisus, that's not a good shaila, because kivan d'miyoyim hashmini v'hala ein lo hefsek. Once the 8th day comes, the chiyiv's there for his whole life. If someone doesn't have a bris, whether they're 10 years old, okay, whether they're a kid, whether they're 15 or 30 or 50, there's a chiyiv min ha-Torah to circumcise himself. So it says Taisus, lav Zman Grama, that's not bound by time. The source of Zman Grama is from Tefillin. It applies 6 days of the week, not Shabbos. And it keeps on happening forever. Bris Milah is different than Tefillin. You can't Tefillin Zeh Makor. Shemitzah Saseh Shazman Grama, that women are potter. But Milah is different. Once the mitzvah comes, it's here to stay. I will tell you, the Sha'agas Aryeh in Siman 53 in his Sefer says that you can answer this question simply. Tefillin, on Shabbos, nobody wears tefillin. The mitzvah is off for the whole world. Here, the fact that for the first 7 days you can't do the bris, the kid was born today. What if he was born a week ago? Then during those 7 days he could have done the bris, right? A kid's born on Sunday, right? So until the next Sunday you can't do the bris. Because that's when the kid was born. If he was born 3 weeks ago, you could have done a bris during that time. That's not like tefillin. It's happenstance. You don't like that. It's a svara he throws out. Some other people throw a similar svara. What?
He didn't come into the chiyuv yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's an individual. But he says that's not like tefillin. Tefillin is, the source comes from tefillin. The mitzvah is off.
That day.
Yeah, right. Today, Milah applies today. I have a kid that was born 5 days ago, so you can't do the Milah. Boom, because that's when he was born. But for another kid that was born 2 weeks ago, or this kid himself, if he was born earlier, he could have done the Milah today.
But tefillin doesn't matter. Tefillin Shabbos off to do.
Yeah. So in other words, he said you could answer Tosafos' question differently. Tosafos himself answers, once Milah comes, it's here to stay. And that's also different than tefillin. But continues Tosafos, v'im taimar, I'm still not happy. Akati mitzvah, it's still a mitzvah essay bound by time. The ein molin ela b'yom, only by day, k'de isa b'perek ha'oral. You only do it by day.
There's situations where you can at night.
Well, here's the thing. The Milah has to be on the 8th day. The night before you can't do. The night before the 8th you can't do. What if you don't do the Milah on the 8th day? The kid didn't have a Milah till the 30th day, 60th day. Once it's not Zman at the right time, could you do it at night? So it's a big machlekes in Masechta Yevamos. Machlekes Tanoim. The halach is you can't do it at night. Always by day. In fact, the Sha'agas Aryeh is a whole shitta. If you do it at night, you blew it. And the next day you can't prick out some blood. It won't help at all, he says. Pricking out blood doesn't always work. Sometimes if you do the Milah at the wrong time, you blew it and lost it forever. The Sha'agas Aryeh holds that if someone accidentally did a bris on the 7th day, not the 8th, then on the 8th day, if you just prick out some blood, you're doing nothing. Finished. The kid's lost his Milah he's circumcised. He'll never have the mitzvah ever. And he has he doesn't just. The Sha'agas Aryeh never says it's not his own conjecture. He brings lots of proofs, like he always does. All of his halachas are objective, and he doesn't care who he runs over. This is he's trying to figure out the will of God. But that's a pretty. Most people disagree with him and say if you do a bris milah on the 7th day, then it's like a kid that was born with the bris. So on the next day, you hatofas dam. You take a little bit of blood. The Sha'agas Aryeh holds that won't help.
We say that with people who are not from
and they had a bris
in the hospital on the 10th day, and all they have to do is a toughest dam.
The Sha'agas Aryeh holds if a goy does a bris on a yid, that's it. It's finished. You can never fix it. It's done. It is what it is. It is what it is. We're going to see more of the Sha'agas. Don't worry, he isn't done. He isn't done for today. Nothing?
More than a top of that.
No, he's not going
Born
to.
came out.
What? That's different. That's different. That's different. He has. Anyhow. So Taisa says, wait a second. If bris can only be done by day, so it's anyways bound by time. So who needs the pasuk? The Yeshloimar, the Asya, this Gemara follows the man da Amar Hasam in Yevamis, the Milah Shaloi Bizman on the Hegesh Bein B'Yom Bein B'Layla. There is one Tana who holds, Taka the 8th day, you can't do the night before, only the 8th day. But from then on, if you do it 2 months later, you could do it at night. There's one opinion in the Tanoim. So according to that opinion, Milah is not bound by time, so you need the pasuk for that opinion. Which is strange because the halacha doesn't follow that opinion. The halacha follows the chachamim that Milah is always done by day. Which means this Gemara in Kiddushin that learns from Avraham Avinu is really shaloi alibah de hilchas. It doesn't follow the halacha. Which is why many people are not happy with Tosfos' answer. It's a very forced answer that the statement in Kiddushin, which is a statement, said on behalf of everyone, actually only follows a minority opinion. So Tosfos in number 2 deals with this as well in Masechta Megillah. Join me number 2. V'hiksha harav Rabbeinu Ephraim. Tosfos Rabbeinu Ephraim, the student of Rabbeinu Tam. Kivan de Milah eina b'la. It's not at night. Im kain, it's a mitzvah aseh bound by time. Women are potter. V'im kain, I have a kasha. Why in Kiddushin do we use the kra of Oisai Hashem commanded Avram? Loimar to teach me. The Isha is not chayiv to do the Milah. Teipuklei, let's derive it that it's the mitzvah aseh bound by time. So V'yeshloimar, we're in the second line of number 2. Tosfos says the following answer: the ilav oisef, not for the pasuk by Avraham, hava amina that Milah is different than other mitzvahs. The high this that women are potter from mitzvah says bound by time. Hainu heicha deleka chorus if there's no chorus. Most mitzvahs says if you don't fulfill them, it doesn't carry the punishment of chorus. There are only 2 positive commands. If you don't fulfill them, it's punishment of chorus. Bringing the carbon Pesach and doing the bris milah.
Yeah.
The Rambam holds that a whole life you could do the bris milah, right? If someone's 50 years old, didn't do it, you could do it when he's 60. So how do you ever violate the mitzvah?
Don't we even do it after someone didn't have a bris?
Yeah. So, so the Rambam says you only violate the mitzvah if someone dies without doing bris milah. So when do you get chorus? The Rambam proves from there that chorus is not just dying early, it must be in the world to come. Because you only violate the mitzvah of Milah if you die. The Ravid disagrees. The Ravid holds every day you don't get the bris. Every day you don't get the bris, you have a punishment of chorus on your head. It's just you have the power to relieve yourself from the punishment by doing the bris. What's the difference? If someone pushes off the bris milah, I'll do it when I'm older, and then he gets hit by a car when he's 30 years old. According to the Rambam, he's not a transgressor, because you only transgress if you die without it. He was planning to do it. The Eibishter hit him by a truck. According to the Ravid, the moment he was bar mitzvah and he refused to do the bris, chorus is on his head. It's just as a loophole. If he happens to get the bris, he can relieve himself. But if you got hit by a truck, I don't care. It's an onus. You didn't relieve yourself from the chorus. You get it from the fact that you pushed it off until that point. 2 shittas, the Rambam and the Ravid. The Rambam and the Ravid. They have a bris, but I'll upon what? The Ravid says once you're bar mitzvah and you refuse to get the bris, you have an isur chorus every day. But the Eibishter gives you a loophole that if you get the bris, you can relieve yourself from the punishment.
If he dies younger by accident,
it's too bad. It's all because you should get punished from the fact that when you were 17, 22, you didn't get the bris. There's a loophole that if you happen to do it later, you can free yourself. But if you don't get to that loophole, I don't care if it's not your fault. We're not pinning you for that. According to the Rav, you got hit by a truck. We're not pinning you for what happened that day. We're pinning you for what happened the years before. But the Rambam disagrees and says you only violate it when you die, which means we're pinning for you for what happened when you get hit by the truck. Accidentally, yeah. This is what the Sameach says. Yeah, the Sameach says this is the difference between the Rambam and the Ravid. Akapon, there are 2 positive mitzvahs that carry chorus. not bringing Korban Pesach, not getting bris milah. So says Tosfos, there's a mitzvah of eating matzah, a mitzvah of simchas yom tov, mitzvah of hakel. None of these have chorus. Uminayu mimatin on noshim. The Gemara in Kiddushin also says there's an idea that if the Eibishter says a rule by 3 different mitzvahs, that means they're all exceptions. Because if he meant it to be a rule for everything, he would only say it by one. If God specifies something in a few places, it means it's only there. Hashem said matzah he wants women to eat even though it's bound by time. Simchas Yom Tov they have to be happy although it's bound by time. Hakel, once in 7 years women have to come. Says Tosfos, the Gemara in Kiddushin learns from there that women are excluded from all other mitzvahs bound by time. But they have to be in the same category that there's no chorus. Avol Milah, which has chorus. In addition, the Eibishter made 13 treaties, pacts, with Avraham over the bris. You would think women are chayiv. That's why you have to have a special pasuk. That's what answer number 1. What's the deal with women by Korban Pesach? It's a major machlokes tanoim. Maybe we'll have a shir closer to Pesach.
According to this,
according to many, they are.
Because of this.
According to this, they wouldn't be chayiv.
They would be because it's the chiyuv korah. You would think they should be chayiv.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That would definitely.
So are they mechuyev at the end?
It's a major machlokes tanoim. In the Rishonim, it's not so clear. There are big debates.
Do they use the same thing though? Because
This logic definitely comes up. Yeah. This argument comes up. Tosfos said at the last line, "Inami," and then he goes back to his answer he gave in Kiddushin. It could be lemila shaloi bezmana. We're talking about milah after the 8th day. Or commander Omar that once it's pushed off, you could do it by day or by night. So he throws in the same answer he gave in.
These Tosfos didn't know this Tosfos.
It's probably written by 2 different people. Different Masechtas. One's Kiddushin, one's Megillah. Could be different people. You often have that Tosfos deals with the same issue in different places, and over here he says A, elsewhere he says B. Sometimes they contradict. Here there's no contradiction. Just you have a whole.
It's how many years?
Over 200 years. It began with Rashi's son-in-law, Rabbeinu Meir, Rashi's students. Rashi had a big student, Reb Yitzchak ben Osher, the Riva, who opened up the first yeshiva of Tosfos in Germany in around the year 1100 or so.
So 1100 to 1300?
Past 1300 even. The Rosh is considered from the Baalei Tosfos, and he passes away in 1327.
And they're all mixed together.
And they were in Germany, they were in France, in England, in Italy. Tosfos Rid is in Italy. You have Tosfos Chachmei Anglia, a whole set of Sfarim. Tosfos of the Baalei Tosfos in English. They spoke in English.
They spoke in French, I think.
In English, in England they spoke in French at that time.
Back then, yeah.
Well, you have Rabbi Yaakov of Orleans. Rabbeinu Tam of Orleans was a student of the famous Rabbeinu Tam, Rashi's grandson. Rabbeinu Tam of Orleans starts off in Orleans in France, and then he makes his way to England, and he was murdered in 1189 by the Richard, the Lion-Hearted debacle in York. You know, when the whole horrible story over there.
The whole thing on that.
Yeah, not to sleep. You don't spend the night in York. So you see from there that some of the greatest Chachmei Anglia actually came from France. So they probably spoke in French.
I saw just the
Yeah, because they came from France.
kingdoms. They spoke.
The kingdom itself, yeah. Mistamim, the Yidden also, because you see that the Rosh Yeshivas themselves, the Shiurim they gave might have been in French because the Rosh Yeshivas themselves came from France. You know, and then in 1290, they were expelled from England anyhow. So the Marshal says Rabbeinu Tam at one point in his yeshiva in France had 80 Baalei Tosfos. That was one yeshiva in one part of the world at one specific time. So over the 250 years in all the countries, you're talking thousands of Baalei Tosfos. Anyhow, many of them were killed in the Crusades.
If women had to actually work Mochayiv and Milah, what would that entail?
What would that entail? That if the husband's not here, you know, the woman would have to do it.
Well, you see, Tzipora.
Tzipora did it, right. So the big machlokes, we had a shir about that. In Masechet Avodah Zarah, first of all, it doesn't mean a woman's chayiv. It could just be that if she did it, it works.
Like a bracha.
Right, yeah, these are good shilas. Anyhow, so Al Kapanim, this is the issue Tosfos has. Now, there are other answers to this question of Tosfos. Look in number 4, the Turei Even. Who wrote the Turei Even? the Sha'agas Aryeh, the same guy, he's back. We quoted Reb Chaim Brisker said that his Sefer Turei Even is not as sharp as the Sefer Sha'agas Aryeh. Because the Sefer Sha'agas Aryeh was written when he was younger and he was poor, he had nothing. And he was living in Volozhin and Minsk, and he was...
What is Sha'agas?
The Roar. Then he comes to Metz in France, his last 20, 30 years, and then they took care of him. They took care of him, yeah, exactly. They took care of him. So Chaim Brisker said once life became very comfortable, his farm already weren't the same. His farm weren't the same. Okay, I'm just saying that's not, I don't necessarily have that same opinion, but Chaim Brisker knew better than, he knew better than me. What?
What's your opinion, you personally?
The Rebbe definitely wanted that these days, in America, to learn Mitoich Harchava.
No, but do you mean which is sharper? Or
Yeah, who is Charles?
Oh, no, that I would never argue with Chaim Brisker. He definitely knows more than me. No, the Turei Even is a wonderful sefer. Turei Even is more patient. He explains much more. Sha'agas Aryeh is bombs.
And which Masechta is it?
This is on Megillah.
Because he only has on the last Masechta. So two Evans only and the
Megillah, Chagiga, yeah, exactly, yeah. So the Sha'agas Aryeh here in number 4 writes a certain svara, which he writes in 2 places, in Chagiga and in Megillah. And it's a good, I think, you'll see if you like the svara or not. It's a svara that he Pashut made up. No one said before, but it's a pretty straightforward svara. He's talking about Bikurim over here, and he wants to know that women are chayiv in bringing Bikurim. Could be the problem is, the only issue is maybe they don't have a portion in Eretz Yisrael. But he wants to know, bringing Bikurim is bound by time because it has to be done by day. And he says like this, V'im kain. Look at number 4. Havle mitzvahs esei shazman grama. L'cher, bringing Bikurim is bound by time. Kivan de'eino neheges b'layl, it's not at night. So why are women and avodim chayavim in bringing Bikurim? Right, the woman has to give the mikra, the drosha, it's hard for her to say because she can't say, thank you for the land that you gave me. But she brings Bikurim. But why? It's bound by time. Va'omer ani. I say. The mikan from here is a proof to what I wrote elsewhere. Laha, the pirashti in Chidushai in the second parak of Chagiga. The had the itzrich kra oisev. So why do Toisus is kasha? Why do I need the pasuk that God commanded Avraham and not Sarah, that women are potter from circumcising the kid? Teipukle, we should derive it to havale mitzvah bound by time, because milah eino neheges is not at night. And he says like this, it's very simple. Mitzvah's essay bound by time is if today you put on tzitzis and tonight there's no more mitzvah, and tomorrow there's a new mitzvah. Friday there's a mitzvah to put on tefillin. Shabbos there's no mitzvah. On Sunday, Friday's mitzvah doesn't return. When you put on tefillin on Sunday, it's Sunday's mitzvah. If you missed out on Friday, you can't make it up. Although we had the word from the Brisker Rav that after Chol Hamoed he used to wear tefillin twice as long to make up. But really, yeah. When the Brisker Rav came to Yerushalayim, the minig there set by the students of the Vilna Gaon was not to wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. Because the Zohar says not to. The Vilna Gaon, his Talmidim came to Eretz Yisrael. The meaning of Yerushalayim was no tefillin Chol Hamoed. So the Brisker Rav Velvel followed. He wasn't going to break that. But he's a Brisker, and in Brisk they wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. So the week after Sukkot and Pesach, he would wear tefillin every day twice as long, to make up for the days. But in strict halacha, the tefillin on Sunday's tefillin. It's not Fridays. Friday's tefillin is bound by time. But imagine Hashem told you to do a mitzvah once in your life, right? Like mitzvahs milah. You can't do it at night, right? Hashem, He wanted you to do it on Monday. You missed it. Now it's Monday night. You got to wait till Tuesday. When you do it on Tuesday, you're doing the same mitzvah from the day before. The night wasn't mavatal, the mitzvah, it just paused it. It didn't cancel, it paused. The chiddush of the Sha'agas Aryeh is the difference of canceling versus pausing. If a certain time comes and cancels the mitzvah, Shabbos and Yom Tov, tefillin is now canceled. The next day, it's a new tefillin. It's not the same tefillin reverting. But by Milah, it's the same mitzvah. Hashem told you to do it once. It's the same mitzvah coming back. What nighttime did was paused it. That's not like tefillin. Let's just read this inside.
To Milah or to Bima?
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. All the things you mentioned, we're gonna get to. Mitzvah Shem. Very, very soon. So says the Sha'agas Aryeh, we're in number 4, the 5th line. Loi choshev, it's not considered mitzvahs essay bound by time, because mitzvahs Milah eino neheges beish echad ela pa'am achas. It's once in your life. Im hayu mala hayoim, if you mauled your kid today, yourself today, you don't have to do it tomorrow. Ela she'im lo yimal, but if you didn't do it today, rami chiyuv alav lailam, that same chiyuv remains on your head forever. Even though, so afal gav de ein milah b'layla, at night you can't do it. Einoi ela mafsekas or mafsekais, it's pausing. V'loi mevatlas, it's not canceling. Because beheir hayoim, when the next day gets light, oisa mitzvah gufet, the very same mitzvah hadri returns the chayla and falls on your head. Hachem, so to by bikurim, the mitzvah's ein is only one time on the certain fruits. If you brought bikurim today, you don't come back till next year. If you didn't do it today, you got to do it. It's the same mitzvah. To afal gav de einon belayla. It's not einoi elam mafaskas. The same thing. Mafsakas. It's only pausing v'loy mevatlas. It's not canceling. That's the chiddush of the Sha'agas Aryeh. So he says that he thinks Tosfos' question about Milah. He thinks Milah is taka not considered bound by time.
And that's why you need Isa.
That's why you know so. It's taka not bound by time. So comes Reb Yitzchak Shmelkish, the Beis Yitzchak, who was one of the great Rabbonim in the times of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Marash, a bit of the time of the Rebbe Rashab. He was a Rav in different cities in Poland, and then he was in Lvov in the end of his life. The Beis Yitzchak, we quoted him in one of the early shurim we had in your house about the worms, about looking in the eye of someone that was killed and seeing the picture of the murderer. Yeah.
What do you call it? The
Eglaruf over
I
there.
had one of those in a while.
So the Beis Yitzchak says, he says, based on his Sha'agas Aryeh, it's very simple. The Mishkan, Hashem wants you to build the Mishkan. It's a one-time thing, right? Once you built it, it's done. Once you built it, it's done.
I thought it was built, taken apart, built, taken apart.
But yeah, but as long as it's standing, the mitzvah is done. I want you to build the Beis Hamikdosh. Once it's built, it's built. Taka falls apart, you got to rebuild it. And all those taka, they moved around and everything. And
Is he talking about the Beis Hamikdosh, not the Mishnah?
the same thing. Yeah, we're going to compare the two. The Gemara says Mikdash Ikri Mishkan. The Mishkan is called Mikdash.
What's the
Called Mishkan.
connection?
So says the Beis Yitzchak, same thing by building the Mishkan. Hashem wants you to build it. It's a one-time thing. If it falls down, you got to rebuild it. But once it's built, right? So you can't build it at night. But when the next day comes, it's not a new mitzvah. It's the same mitzvah from the day before, coming back.
Like the brace.
Like the bris and like Bikurim.
Pause.
Exactly, it's just paused.
It's a living mitzvah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. In other words, the same as bris milah, but here you have no exemption. By bris milah, I have a pasuk. Here I don't. That's the answer of the Beis Yitzchak. Very simple, straightforward. That's answer number 1.
Based on Sha'agas Aryeh.
Based on the Sha'agas
The
Aryeh.
Sha'agas
Yeah.
Aryeh doesn't address this himself.
No.
Why
no.
not? It seems so clear, like from what he's saying, that's
Especially, like I mentioned, that many people say the Sha'agas Aryeh was the big one who attacked the Rambam in number 1. Why would he attack him? Based on what he says in number 4, he has a good answer.
Maybe that's why he doesn't.
Yeah, that's yeah.
That you couldn't find.
Yeah, exactly. That's one I couldn't find. Right. So I'm skeptical exactly where that came from. Big people quote it, but no one quotes the source. So whenever you have that people quote someone, but no one says a source, it's dubious. It's dubious. Because it's very possible that it means that originally someone quoted him by mistake, and ever since then everyone's following the same thing. It happens all the time.
How did you find to use this to answer this?
Oh, this is a well-known. The Beis Yitzchak was a big.
The one that someone else
Basis
said.
of use this.
No. This is because the Sha'agas Aryeh writes this in a few places. It's a well-known piece that he has. The fact that the Beis Yitzchak it's also
He's the only one who said it.
probably the first one who I don't know if someone said it before him, because this whole idea was created by the Sha'agas Aryeh, in the early 1700s, and 100 years later he came and adapted it to. Answer number 2. Hold on, this is a good one too. Why taka are women potter from a mitzvah's essay bound by time? We can learn it from tefillin, but why did the Eibush taka? Why taka? Why taka don't they wear tefillin? So the Avud Raham, Reb David Avud Raham, one of the Rishonim in Spain, he says a well-known reason. He says the Eibishter wants a woman to be able to fulfill the will of her husband. He says a woman always has to be ready, willing, available, not about willing, but ready and available to do the will of the husband. So it says that, would you imagine the husband asks the wife, can I have breakfast? She says, sorry, I have to daven. He says like this, if she makes the breakfast, what's she going to say to God? If she davens, oy wait her from her husband. So he says, in order to make peace between the husband and wife, Hashem said, positive commands bound by time you don't have to do.
Can you print it?
And the kolba, by the way, the kolba is also one of the Rishonim says the same thing. So listen to this. Comes Reb Yosef Natanson, the great rabbi of Lvov in the times of the Tzemach Tzedek. He was the big one that allowed machine matzahs. You know, he had a big thing about him over there. Lots of good stuff about him. He has a sefer called Yad Shaul, and he says like this.
By the way, in Proverbs, it says you're supposed to question the rabbis in Kayelis. And then in Mishlei.
All right, and the rabbis will choose.
And the rabbis
will choose if they want to answer.
They shut it off and they said, no, you're not allowed to question us. We're not even telling you the reason, so you can't find out how to question us.
For Parnasa.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons, one of the Tam Komos, the hidden reason.
Well, in what?
The matzah.
By the matzah.
No, but they said, we're not telling you the reason because we don't want you to be able to question it. That's what they're...
Yeah, well, by the get of Cleves, that's what the Frankfurt Bezin refused to reveal anything.
And look what happened there.
Oh, yeah, they were.
It's a pasuk in Mishlei, and Rashi.
Usually, when someone refuses to give their reason, if you're so comfortable with your logic, why don't you share it? But on the other hand, there are times where you don't want to get into reasons because you know that, as good as the reason will be, somebody out there will try and undermine it, and you'd rather just. The Gemara says that the Eibishter B'chal didn't give reasons for any mitzvahs. A few he gave, and look what happened. He told kings, don't have too many wives because they'll thwart your heart. Shlomo said, that's the reason. Doesn't apply to me. My wisdom will protect me. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, look what happened to the pasuk says that Noshav hit to his lavava. They swayed his heart. Yeah, no. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, not to have mashka on Pesach, even kosher Pesach mashka from potato. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, don't do it for tam komos, for a hidden reason. And I think that Tzemach Tzedek said that since the Rabbi Akiva Eiger didn't reveal, the Mittler Rebbe, he said since Rabbi Akiva Eiger didn't reveal the reason, we can't argue. If he would have given the reason, we could discuss it. There's no reason, so we just have to accept it, and that's why the Far Chassidim don't have potato mashka. Anyhow, so says Natanzon, Rabbi Natanzon, Rabbi Yosef Natanzon, the Rav of Lvov, he says, incredible. According to Avud Raham, why shouldn't the woman daven? Because it's coming at the expense of her husband, right? But what if she's doing a mitzvah that the husband would have had to do himself? The husband has to mal the kid, right? The husband has to mal the kid. So if the woman's going to do it, it's not coming at the expense of her husband. She's helping her husband. The logic wouldn't apply here. Tefillin doesn't help the husband, so it's coming. It's going head to head. Milah's not. If she would be chayiv to mal the kid, it's not. Oh, you have to help your husband. This is helping the husband. See, that's how he answers Taisa's kasha. But he says, look at the reason. Go to the Avud Raham and the Kolba. The reason that women are potter from Kriya Shema and from Tefillin, etc. Davening punkt der chayiv, but all is because it conflicts the husband's interests. But if the mitzvah itself is helping the husband, then fakir she would be chayiv. So he tainas and then says Natan. That's why you have to have a pasuk oisoi, him and not her. But he says so too by the Beis Hamikdosh. It's a communal obligation. Her husband's part of the community. So you can say it a couple ways. First of all, when she's doing her share, maybe she's helping her husband do the share that he would. They're a team. When she's doing the part her husband would have had to do.
So why just one part and not the other part?
What do you mean the other part? What we said in the beginning.
The Mishkan is split. So she's.
Who said it's split? What I said in the beginning.
The Mishkan, they have the women are only mechuyev in the.
I mentioned that was from from the Malkiel Tzvi Tenenbaum. Why did I forget his?
But Rabbi, if they're going to start to do the mitzvah to the husband, they're going to end up in a kollel all day.
Like, why only that mitzvah then? I mean,
Because it's a communal mitzvah.
why the milah? Why not shaking lulav or doing?
That doesn't help the husband.
Why not? The mitzvah has to get ogetam.
No, the husband still has to do it himself.
The husband has a chiv to do
The husband has to do tefillin himself. What does it help him if the wife wears tefillin? It doesn't. It's a conflict of interest. But by the communal mitzvah, first of all, she's doing her husband's part. Now her husband can go learn. She's helping him. In addition, you could say when it's if it's the Eibish's mitzvah, God could say, I'd rather you be with the husband. But if it's the community that's going to lose out, then the community has to give up on its rights for the sake of the yochid of the husband. But it's more the idea that what she's doing could be helping the husband himself. She's doing her husband's part. So that's why women are chayiv. That's what he says. Fine. Now we come to the last thing we're going to discuss, and that's the following. When it comes to the mitzvah of having children, there are a couple of anomalies that we see. One of them is if a guy has kids, a boy and a girl, and then is Megayer, does he have to have new kids? Reish Lakish says, yeah. Reish Lakish says, now that you're a Yid, you're like a newborn, so those kids aren't your kids. You're not related to them. You have to have new kids. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you're Yaitz of the mitzvah with the kids you had as a goy.
The kids were Megayer too?
That's a machlekes. The halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan that you're Yaitz. Many hold the kids don't have to convert. The Vilna Gaon holds that. Many hold the kid don't have to convert. Still Yaitz. And most hold, though, that the kids do have to convert.
Otherwise, you're not yotze.
Otherwise, you're not Yaitz. Yeah, so if the kids convert, you're Yaitz. So, hold on. So comes the Sha'agas Aryeh, another Sha'agas Aryeh, also in his Sefer Turei Even, and he asks, wait a second. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you're Yaitze? The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, if somebody has moments when he has a seizure, God forbid, someone has a seizure, at that time they're potter from mitzvahs because they don't have any control over their mind and their actions. What if while they had a seizure, they ate a kazayas of matzah?
Seizure is like
roll on the floor.
Like on a trance.
lose control of your
You
limbs,
become a
shaking.
Like a
You
stroke.
lose, yeah. Someone goes on the floor and rolls around. Yeah.
You lose control of your limbs and you're shaking.
The Gemara says someone who's itim bari, itim shote.
You mean
Yeah.
mentally
Epilepsy.
ill?
What?
You talk about more mental illness?
No, somebody that at times the case is physical because then you understand how at times is normal, at times is not.
No, mental illness also. You can go
Mental
into
illness,
your-
okay, fine. Yeah, okay. The point is if somebody reached a time, someone reached at a time, said someone was sleeping. If someone is at a time when they're not chayiv in mitzvahs, out of control, then they ate a kazayas matzah, and then they become normal again. The Gemara says they have to re-eat it because they did the mitzvah at a time when they were potter. So, frek the Sha'agas Aryeh, if someone had kids as a goy, you're not chayiv in Ur'vu as a goy. So he says, I didn't get Rabbi Yochanan. If the father converts, Reish Lakish's issue was, now that you're a newborn, you're not related. He says, forget about that issue. The issue is, you fulfilled the mitzvah at the time you were potter. It's like eating the matzah when you have a seizure. So I don't care if the kids are Megayer. How could you be Yaitze? Sha'agas Aryeh is big kasha. This is what, the fourth Sha'agas Aryeh we're quoting to. Big kasha. How do you explain this? So, the Rogatchover explains, the mitzvah of having kids, is it to have kids or is it to have kids? What do I mean by that? Is the mitzvah the action to make kids or actually that the kids should be? The kids should be. The Rambam writes the following. How many kids does a person need to have sheyiskayim ha-mitzvah al yodah, that the mitzvah should be fulfilled through you? The Rambam holds that the act of procreation is only like preparing the shofar. It's a hechsher mitzvah. The mitzvah is when the boy and the girl are born. So the Rogatchover says if someone has kids as a guy and is Megayer, you know why Rabbi Yochanan says you're Yaitze? Because you're doing the mitzvah now. You have a boy and a girl who are alive now. It's not like eating matzah. The matzah is the mitzvah to eat. If you did it while you had a seizure, you were potter. Here, you procreated while you were goy. That's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to have kids alive in the world. You have them now. That's what the Rogat Shova says.
Especially in a guy.
Right. So the Minchas Chinuch in number 5 says a similar thing about another kasha about Ur'vu. If somebody lives with an erva, a woman that carries chorus, imagine someone has an adulterous relationship, God forbid, and he has a kid. The kid's a mamzer, yeah? But can the father say, no, I have kids. So it's a major debate. The Minchas Chinuch holds your yaitze. So that's what he asked in number 5. The Minchas Chinuch, one of the classics for him, the times of the Tzemach Tzedek, actually a cute story, he had a cousin that was living in Yerushalayim in the mid-1800s. And the Maharil Diskin, Yeshua Yehuda Leib Diskin, was then the big Rav in Yerushalayim. And the cousin of the Minchas Chinuch was a balabas. He wasn't known to be a scholar at all. But he got his cousin, the Minchas Chinuch, sent him manuscripts of his work. So he read it, and then he would go to the Maharil Diskin, the cousin, and he would show all of his lomdus. And the Maharil Diskin had tremendous respect for this guy. And no one in the community could understand, because this guy wasn't, he wasn't someone that learned or anything. Until a couple years later, when the Minchas Chinuch was finally printed, and they all saw exactly the whole secret unraveled. The whole secret unraveled.
He still knew how to learn, though. He was able to.
Yeah, no, he knew how to learn. No, but the Maharil Diskin would look at him like this guy's one of the goinim of the city. But he was the guy was a smart guy, but he didn't sit and learn. What?
He sat at the front of the table.
Exactly, he got everything. Yeah, he got the first. What?
Shook back then, Yerushalayim was full.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. So the Minchas Chinuch actually wrote tons of works, and most of them were lost. And he was sitting with his brother-in-law, Reb Chaim Tzanzer, the Divrei Chaim, and he told the Divrei Chaim, everything I wrote either was stolen or destroyed. I wrote stuff on Chumash, wrote in Shulchan Aruch. He says, all I have left is a couple footnotes on the Sefer HaChinuch, which today is 3 huge volumes. A couple footnotes. But he was dejected, and Chaim Tzanzer said, no, you should print it. He says, it might be small in your eyes, but it's going to be a big hit. It's going to make it big. And he encouraged him to print it. And here we are learning today from the Minchas Chinuch. So the Minchas Chinuch wants to know, Zman number 5, have a big shaila. Why would you be yotze if someone has a mamzer kid? How could you be yotze having a kid? It's a mitzvah which comes through an aveira. According to many Rishonim, if a mitzvah comes through an aveira, it's no good. Many hold min HaTorah, it's no good. Tosfos hold it's only an issue rabbinically. Tosfos in Masechta Sukkah holds if you do a mitzvah through an aveira, the psul, it's only cancelled rabbinically. Min HaTorah, it's still good. Yeah, lulav, yeah, exactly.
Rabbinica is no good, but by Torah it's still good?
Yeah, okay, but then there's other psukim that lulav has to belong to you and things like that. But as far as mitzvah ba ba'aveira, doing a mitzvah through a stolen item, it's only a rabbinic issue. But says the Minchas Chinuch, I'll tell you the answer, and he says the answer is like this: mitzvah haba. Look in line number 5 of number 5, line 5. Mitzvah haba ba'aveira doesn't apply unless b'shas the mitzvah you do a sin. For example, you steal an esrog. As you're using the esrog, you're using somebody else's item. You're a thief. As you get. That's a mitzvah which is coming through an aveira. But having kids, when are you yotze having kids? When the kid's born. There's no aveira then. The aveira is done at the act. That's just a preparatory stage. Mitzvah abba ba'aveira only applies if the fulfillment of the mitzvah happens through sin. But if the act is through sin and the mitzvah happens later, you're yotze. That's what he says of it. And he says the same idea as the Rogat Shaver.
How are you doing a mitzvah when it's actually
Look on fourth to last line. In number 5, he says, the fourth to last line, V'araya, if somebody tried to have kids, never had kids, he doesn't have the mitzvah. Even though he tried to procreate his whole life, the mitzvah is not fulfilled. So if someone had kids and God forbid they pass away, he loses the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the result. Kids should be in this world.
Hefza.
Yeah, or the nifal, right? The nifal, they should be here. And then he says, and once the kids are born, there's no avera. The avera happened at the time of the intimacy. That's just a preparatory stage. He said it's like if somebody carries a shofar through the street. Okay, let's say if you blow on Shabbos, but let's say you carry something through the street on Shabbos. You carry the matzah through the street to your Seder, and then you eat it Friday night by the Seder, right? You're Yotze eating matzah. I came through an Avera. The Avera was done before when I carried it. The actual eating is not an Avera. It's only an issue if you're eating stolen matzah.
Driving to shul on Shabbos.
Yeah.
But it's the
Yeah.
same thing,
It's an
Rabbi.
issue, but it doesn't.
Not a mitzvah.
Right.
Rabbi, but
Well,
it's
it's
the same thing.
it can still be labeled that way, but in a strict halacha taka not. It doesn't invalidate the tefillah that you do here. If you carry matzah, he says, eating stolen matzah is a mitzvah ba'avera. Every bite you take, you're stealing. But if you happen to get the matzah through carrying, but now you have it, it's your matzah, it's not a mitzvah ba'avera. So it's the same idea as the Rogatchover answering this question. The Rogatchover was answering the kasha, the Sha'agas Aryeh about the goy. He's answering the shaila about mitzvah ba'avera. Yeah, what?
But a little bit different because the prohibited baby, the avera, it's actually the beginning, the creating of the whole baby until it's coming in a 9 month. So the whole avera,
I hear.
it's a little bit different than the driving on Shabbos with the matzah and you make the seder with that.
I hear.
You don't make the avera in actually the matzah himself. The avera done on the way. But here the actual avera, the relationship is the
It's
beginning,
a very good
the
point.
creating of the whole subject that you yotze by.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
It's a little bit different, but still, afal pikein, mikol makom. Since you can split between the maisa and the kiyum, between the act and the fulfillment, that's enough. Comes 6, Reb Yosef Engel uses the same logic to answer another shaila. One?
When you steal the matzah, so is it every moment it's stolen is stolen? You're doing the avera? Or
If you have stolen matzah, you have to give back this matzah.
the Haitian?
When you eat it, you're stealing it. When you have that matzah in your house, it's not yours yet. By sukkah, we have dinim that if you steal something and then you change it, or by matzah, if you steal flour and then you make it into matzah, you acquire it through the change. You're kind of b'shinui.
Yeah.
So then when you eat it, you're not stealing. If you steal flour and you bake into matzah, you only have to pay cash. So right now, when you eat the matzah, you're not doing an act of stealing. But if you stole the matzah, you got to give back the matzah. When you bite into that matzah, it's an act of stealing. Anyhow, comes Reb Yosef, exactly from the Haitian, yeah. So comes Reb Yosef Engel in number 6. Reb Talabam's not here, but we have to mention that his father used to stroll in Venice with Reb Yosef Engel. In Vienna, in the early 1900s. Yosef Engel passed away in 1920. So Reb Yosef Engel says the following. He wants to know, l'chayra, do women have to have kids? Are women chayiv in Ur'vu? In Masechta Yevamos, one opinion holds, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broker, women are chayiv in Ur'vu, but most disagree. The halach is women are potter. The Ur Sameach famously explains, having kids is painful. God would never give a mitzvah which is completely related to suffering, anguish, and pain. It's a mitzvah on the father to give to the kid. The Rambam in Mer Nevuchim, by the way, says, why do you give the Milah when the kid's 8 days old? Says the Rambam, if you wait till he's a year old, the father would never do it. You're too attached to the kid. When the kid's 8 days old, the father doesn't know. The mother, Taka, knows the kid. She doesn't have to mal the kid. Because the mother couldn't do it. That's another reason. The father, he just met the kid 7 days, he barely knows the kid. No problem, you want me to cut, I'll cut. That's what he writes in the Mer Nevuchim. Very interesting. Anyhow, says to Reb Yosef Engel, are women chayiv in Ur'vu? Most hold not. Allah is they're not. And what's the source? It's a pasuk. Hashem told Adam and Chav, I want you to have children and conquer the world. Says the Gemara in Yevamos, men are those that conquer. They're the ones that have to have kids, not women. For Reb Yosef Engel, women should be potter from having kids regardless. It's a mitzvah essay bound by time. Because on Yom Kippur, there are 5 things you can't do. One of them is intimacy. According to many Rishonim, it's biblical. that means one night a year you can't have kids. If one night a year you can't have kids, it makes it bound by time. So women should be potter anyways. This is the famous Shiloh Reb Yosef Engel asks in his Sefer Asvin Doiraisa. So he goes on a whole arichas. It could be
the act. The mitzvah's
it could be one time, doesn't like by a gematria, it could be off by one. It could be one time doesn't blow it, but he brings proof it could be one time does blow it. So what's his answer? He says like this in number 6. V'hina yesh lema Ur'vu is different. We're number 6. We hold in Yavamas. If someone has kids and they died, you don't fulfill Ur'vu. What do you see from there? You see like the Minchas Chinuch and the Rugged Shaver. When the third line, Ikar ha-mitzvah Ur'vu, har yorak havoyis habonim, that the kids should exist. It's not the act, it's having the kids existing. The Torah placed on the man only the hechsher, the preparatory stage, to do the act of intimacy in order that the kids should exist. But the guf ha-mitzvah is when the kids are alive. And the proof is if they died, you lose the mitzvah. Just like the Minchas Chinuch, and you have to have new kids. He says like this, on Yom Kippur, Taka, you can't procreate. But when you have kids, you fulfill the mitzvah. If someone has a boy and a girl, when do you fulfill that mitzvah? Yom Kippur too. Since the mitzvah is about having kids, that's not bound by time. The Imkain, he says, since having kids is a mitzvah, Imkain, that mitzvah is on Yom Kippur too. Because it would have been, if not for the pasuk that Hashem told Adam and Chava, conquer the world and have kids. Which teaches us only those that conquer have to have kids. Because he says the kids that you have exist on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur you can't do the act, the preparatory stage. Fine, but the actual mitzvah, which is the kids should be alive, once they're alive, you fill Yom Kippur too. And therefore, it's a mitzvah's essay not bound by time. And therefore, women should be chayiv, and that's why I need a special pasuk, women are potter. And look what he says in the second last line, on the third last line, he says, so too by mitzvah's milah. He says the same thing by Milah, another answer to Taisus' kasha. He says by Milah as well. It's a mitzvah's essay not bound by time. You know why? Let's say, what about nighttime? Or he's dealing with another issue. Everybody asks on Taisus, who cares, even if you're going to go like the opinion that once you pass the 8th day, you could do it at night. You can't do it on Shabbos. A mitzvah which is not on the 8th day can't be done on Shabbos. So Rabbi Yankiv Emden asked that kasha, the Sha'agas Aryeh in many places asked that kasha, and they usually answer. The answer is, if the mitzvah is done on the 30th day, right, why can't you do it on Shabbos? The mitzvah doesn't disappear. Shabbos just doesn't allow you to fulfill it. The mitzvah is still there. Says Yosef Engel, I have a much better answer. The mitzvah of Milah is not the act of cutting, it's the result. And the Rugged Shaver spoke about this a lot. The Rebbe spoke about this. The Rebbe would learn there's 3 parts to mitzvah's Milah. There's the act. But then there's the fact that the rest of your life, you're not an oral, and the fact that the rest of your life you have the circumcision. In fact, the Rugged Shaver learns that the act is only a way, it's a means to an end, it's the way to make you a nimel. And Reb Yosef Engel said the same svar over here. Shari, in the last line of Gam b'Milah, the person's act is only a hechsher, it's a preparatory. The mitzvah is to be... And when are you gemalit? Every day, every moment of your life, day and night. You can only do the act at night. Who cares? The mitzvah itself, which is to be, is forever.
If it's the mitzvah itself, so why at night? So why
What?
can't you do that night?
No, the act is bound by time.
down on the
Ubiyom hashmina yimo. By day, not by night.
So this is a hechsher mitzvah in a way? Becomes
He says clearly, the act of the milah is a hechsher, to get you to a state of being nimel.
the hechsher mitzvah must be done in the right way, included
Exactly.
at a certain time, not the day,
Right.
not night.
But since the main part of the mitzvah is not bound by time, women are chayiv. That's why milah they would be chayiv if not for a pasuk. Having kids they would be chayiv if not for a pasuk.
We chai for the kids to do that to the kids. Milah for women.
For her son. The mother would have to do her son, if not for the pasuk of Yosef Engel. Now, who else says this clearly? So, what are you just saying? Just to wrap it up, by Ur'vu, the mitzvah is the result. The Rugged Shaver used it to answer the Sha'agas Aryeh's kasha of the goy having kids. The Minchas Chinuch used it for the mitzvah ba'avera. Reb Yosef Engel uses it that kids is not bound by time. And in number 7, the Sefas Emes, he says the same thing. He says about Tosis kasha, about the Milah, he says the exact same thing we just said from Yosef Engel. The mitzvah is not the active story. Look at number 7 in the 3rd line. Aval HaMechuven is to be nimol every day and every night of your life. Zman Grama is when the mitzvah itself is bound by day and it doesn't exist at night. But over here, the act doesn't exist at night, but the result where God wants you to be, which is to be a nimol, that exists by day and by night, your whole life, and therefore it's not Zman Grama. So the Sefas Emes says the same logic. So now we can answer the Shaila on the first Rambam. The Eibishter wants us to have a Beis Hamikdosh. Is the mitzvah the building, or is the mitzvah to have?
Again, Rabbi?
Is the mitzvah to build the Beis Hamikdosh, or to have a Beis Hamikdosh? The Rambam starts off the beginning of Hilchos Beis HaBechira. The Rambam says, the Eibishter gave us a mitzvah to build a Beis Hamikdosh. The Rambam says, in order there should be a house which is muchan, which is always there, ready and waiting to bring korbanos and to go there on Yom Tov. The purpose is not the building. That's just a means to an end. The ultimate is having the building there standing. So many people say we're going to apply the exact same logic we saw by having kids, or the logic of Milah we're going to apply over here as well. The mitzvah is to have a Beis Hamikdosh. You have to build it technically. The building is bound by time, but since the result, when you have the Beis Hamikdosh, you fulfill it by day and by night. Women are chayiv. Okay, that's the answer. So we.